going to go ahead and move ahead to Shawn.
Hey guys. Great. So again, I'm Shawn Johnson. I'm the founding hero at Mobile App Hero. And we can go to the next slide. Next slide. So a little bit, just quick about my background. I'm a software engineer with just a little over 25 years of experience developing solutions for Fortune, all size companies, honestly. So I've been very fortunate to work with different size companies, and I've had a pretty lengthy career as a software engineer. Next slide. So I want to talk about, I mean, obviously it's a recurring theme here, how failure can be a teaching tool. And to Jeff's point, sometimes it's interesting when that is a tool. But for me, I want to talk about what that tool taught me. Next slide. So this is still one of the most, I don't know, I guess not embarrassing, but just personal kind of areas for me when I think about my business and I think about how important it is to me. But the one thing that I did that really constitute what I consider to be a failure that we've been able to kind of fix is that I built a job instead of a business. And this is a really subtle but important distinction, right? Jobs, you go and you use yourself as a resource. Businesses have systems and resources. And when I was starting my business, I was so caught up in the momentum of what I was doing, I missed some critical things. Next slide. So, as you can see, this is me. This is actually not that long ago. It feels longer because I've made so many changes, but on this day, 2019, I was in this hospital bed and they thought I had a heart attack. And sitting there getting poked and prodded and tested every couple hours, I was still taking calls. I was still getting calls. I was still writing. I wasn't writing code, but I was reviewing code in the hospital bed. And about, I guess, the second day being in the hospital, it dawned on me that this was not working. And this was probably going to kill me if I didn't do something about it. Next slide. So this is a really great quote. You do not rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems. This is a quote by James Clear. He has a book. Of course, I'm going to space on the name of the book, but I'll find it and I'll put it in the chat. But this is such an important quote, right? I'm a highly motivated person. I have multiple businesses, I have multiple ambitions, but what I learned from my core business is that I was going to continue to struggle until I built systems to support my goals. And I'm going to say that again. I struggled until I started putting, thank you, Atomic Habits is the name of that book. I struggled until I started putting systems to support my goals. Next slide. So I broke down some of these lessons and some of these thoughts that I had into the slide. So I'm just going to kind of go through. I mean, this is some of the items we're going to cover. So, the ability to track progress, using clear communication, the power of effective listening, and creating a cadence and sticking to it. These are some really important building blocks in running a business and building systems. Next slide. So thinking about failure or thinking about progress, not even failure, but progress, the first question is, well, am I being successful? Am I making progress? Or am I, in fact, failing? You need tools to help you determine if you're actually meeting your goals. right? I was using a lot of momentum in my business. Like I was using my emotions and my feelings to tell me whether or not I felt like I was succeeding or not. And that was not an effective way to track progress. I want to recommend that you guys create goals, write them down, create timelines, even if you have to adjust those timelines, even if you have to adjust your goals or break your goals down into smaller, manageable chunks. This is a huge tool. Having the analytics to determine the velocity of your choices and the velocity of your effectiveness of the things you're working on is a huge, important thing. Next slide. Clear communication. I just want to say that most of the time we are not saying what we think we're saying. And this is such an issue. Everyone thinks that we're being clear. The better you are writing or communicating, the more you think you are being clear, and probably is very much the opposite, right? There's so many different communication patterns that people have. You really got to keep adjusting to your audience. So keeping an eye on, one, making sure everything is written. I'm a talker. I'm good. I like to say I'm good on my feet. I'm good in conversation. I'm bad with follow-up about writing. But one of the things I started doing is every time I had a meeting with clients or people, I immediately took notes in that meeting and I sent a follow-up recap. And that was a game changer because it added accountability to the conversation and it brought another level of clarity. Because some people are really good with talking, but most people are really bad at remembering what we agreed on when we talked. And that was a problem. Next slide. This cannot be said or oversaid enough. Like, just listening, being an effective listener, being an active listener. I am very much a creative when it comes to this stuff. So that means my head is in the clouds more often than not. And when I am listening, I need to engage systems to keep me focused in the conversation, pulling out what I need to process. And even that process, like listening versus processing, in that transition, you can lose, the human element of the important part of listening. So it's really important to strike a balance between active listening, being present in the things that are important in your business, whether they be client conversations, whether they be conversations with your employees, conversations with your support system, your wife, your children. Employing active listening techniques will be a real important tool to help you stay focused and really achieve better results in your goals. Next slide. This is something, there's a saying that, the doing is easy, the discipline to do the thing is more complicated thing. And a lot of the things that I'm talking about have a lot more to align, not so much with technique, but with the discipline of using technique. So, being an active listener and taking effective notes and sending follow-ups, that's not hard to do. Having the discipline to do it often is a little bit more challenging, and it's also really important. Going into that, just creating a cadence. And when I say creating a cadence, like using a system, having a set time to talk to customers. So every time we sign a new customer, we give them their own weekly meeting, and we stick to it. We try our very best to stick to it. We have a lot of times with customers, they have competing priorities. We would have competing priorities. But what's really important is to have a cadence and stick to it. One of the things that, if you go back to that picture of me in the hospital bed, I was trying to juggle. Thank you. This guy here was failing at managing his priorities. He was struggling because he was trying to do so many different things and be way too many different people to everyone else. And he wasn't able to effectively gauge how effective he was actually being at any of it. And what I realized at this moment is that I needed to shift. If we can get back to that last slide, thank you for that. So I created cadences for communication, and I stuck to it. I didn't respond to clients on the weekends anymore or late at night. And I told clients this is the time we would meet, and that is the time. If a client couldn't meet, that was fine. I would send an update via email, and I would just move on. But I wouldn't just over obsess with those different, we didn't do this, or I will make myself available. I made myself available almost to death. And I'm going to answer some of these questions I see coming in. Next slide. Again, this is kind of dovetailing into like cadence and tracking progress, accountability. Holding yourself accountable, and holding your clients accountable. What I was really good at was holding myself accountable, but I would not use that same lens to the many, many clients we had. And, clients are just like people. Everybody wants what they want. Everybody has their own priority, and you can't expect to be a priority in someone else's plan unless you make yourself a priority in your own plan. So what I started doing is I started realizing that, as important as my business is, as important as my clients are, and they really are important, I needed to make sure that I held them accountable to the things that we agreed. And again, if you go backwards, okay, so how did I do that? I started documenting everything that we said. Thank you. I started documenting everything we said. I started sending recap emails, and when I wasn't available, I wasn't available. So the client had to use the time that we set to be effective, to make sure they got what they needed. Another thing, again, it's kind of difficult to admit because I am a creative, I'm a fire sign. I'm definitely, I use my emotions as tools, but your emotions can definitely derail your progress. This is business, and to some degree, your emotions are great assets, but they should not remove the process. And what was happening is I let my emotions override the process that I knew that I needed to use. And that was part of the downfall and the things that I really struggled with. Okay. Yes. So next slide, please. Next slide. I guess I'm running out of time. Next slide. Make sure. This is a really important point. Developing great relationships with clients is important, but one of the things I struggle with, I treated every client like a friend, but in fact, they are clients. They have requirements and needs, and you are there to fulfill those, but at the same time, you're there to also run your business. And what I struggled with is I had a lot of people who I considered to be friends, and they almost friended me to death. Because they were actually clients who had their own needs, and they would ask upon me and pull upon me, and I would let that go until the nth degree. So I had to really kind of restructure how I looked at my client relationships. I would say develop a system, have the discipline to use that system, and just give yourself room to grow in that process. So questions. Let me answer some questions. Yes.
Yeah, so Shawn, if you'd like, I've been reading through them, and of course we won't get to all of them, but let's see. So Kayla wants to know, since January 21st, 2019, when you were in that hospital bed, how have you adjusted your cadence to balance business and self-care?
That's a great question. And I'm going to be really transparent. It's still a work in progress. I think I had a really great handle on it. I mean, I made physical changes. I don't eat meat. I'm not quite a vegan, but I'm kind of there. But I changed my diet. I exercised. I mean, I spent some time out away from home just to get a reset, and that, and I exercised. It was really transformational just to take better care of my physical body. That was a big thing. Also, again, like I said, I started to put policy and systems in place to support my business, where if I wasn't there, I could click a button and something would happen.
Okay. And so let's talk a little bit about the pandemic that we're dealing with. So Elle wants to know if there's a system that you've developed for your business that's proven beneficial during the COVID pandemic.
Well, so yes, it's a system, and it's not a system for my business. It's a system for everyone else. I was in the middle. So we're digital. We help other companies digital. Like what I saw is a lot of companies struggling to, oh my God, I need to be digital. So I was good from that point of view. Our business was digital. We can do it virtually. But I, like a lot of people, I would imagine, was just filled with this nervousness, this anxiousness, this, my anxiety is just showing up in all these different places. I needed a way to try to figure out what to do with that. And what I decided to do with all that extra energy is I just started doing more coaching. I have already been, some of you will know me from coaching and mentoring, but I spent a lot more time in the beginning of the pandemic working with other people and coaching. And, secretly, I was helping myself by helping other people. It really gave me something to focus on because I had a chance to work with other people and be helpful and be useful in this crazy time.
Yeah. Okay. So Bharat wants to know, how do you build relationships with clients if you don't have a reputation to begin with? So if you're just getting started, and what are some of your beginning sales stories and success stories?
Yeah, that's a great question. Listen, we are always starting at something, right? People will give you an opportunity when you ask for it. When I first moved to Atlanta and I wanted to make myself an independent contractor doing websites, I literally walked the malls. I would go on Google, see the website for the store. If it needed some help, I would offer my services. I would say, hey, listen, you do not have to pay me. I'm trying to add value. If you see value in my services, let's do business, or you can give me a referral. To this day, 90% of our business is referral. I have, it's based on I really want to bring this home to you. Focus on adding value. You will be able to build based on that value.
Okay, and I think we have, we're a little bit past our time, but maybe we'll just, I'll give you one more question before we wrap up. Denise wants to know, what other communication tools do you use to follow up with clients and customers besides email?
So I do try to stick it to email, but I use project management tools. I've used a bunch. Currently, I'm using Asana. It's invaluable. I coach my clients to use it as well. A lot of them have reported that they love it. It really isn't about the tool. It's about the discipline of using a project management tool. Emails, you're always looking for something. Having a tool where all the communications in one place, all the attachments, all the things that all the communications going back and forth about various things, it can be very helpful. I do recommend Asana, but there's also Trello and a bunch of other ones. I highly recommend that you invest in a system.
Okay. Yeah, that's a clear message. Systems are necessary. So, well, thank you, Shawn and Jeff and Tiffini. I think this has been an excellent discussion. I appreciate you all sharing your stories.